This episode is brought to you by our Patreon members.
Join our growing community for early access to every episode, exclusive video versions of the podcast, behind-the-scenes footage, full-length product demos, and more. We appreciate you. Welcome back to Martins and More. My name's Maury Rutch, and I'm here with Martin Insider Spoon Phillips. Spoon, what's happening?
What's happening? It's January. We know what January means. January means new Martins.
Namuary, right?
Namuary. Why didn't I think of that? Because that's why you're the smart guy and I'm just the wise guy. Yes. We have already gone over the new improved standard series with some of those new models, which include the standard series D17 and 0017 and the OM45, all very exciting. And we're going to be revealing an extra special new standard series guitar today, but it's going to be eclipsed by a couple of extremely special Martins.
That is so true. And even though so many people liked our episode last week, I think I got 3 million emails asking me, is that it? Isn't Martin going to bring out more models? I think we need to see more stuff. What do you know about the first guitar we're going to talk about, and why did I choose that number?
I don't know that much about it compared to a lot of things because this was kept pretty hush-hush, other than the fact that a lot of people knew Martin was approaching their officially 3 millionth guitar, which has been created and is being announced on the day this podcast is being released.
In the future.
In the future.
So, technically, we know who won the playoff games, huh? They happened yesterday.
That's right. Those Detroit Lions played a great game. The Martin 3 millionth guitar, which, according to Martin, is a breathtaking celebration of Martin's rich legacy, craftsmanship, and the people behind it all. We've seen some of their amazing guitars like the D15, D-100, and the 1 millionth and the 2 millionth, and some of them had some pretty far-out designs. It's a matter of opinion of which ones you liked. This one is right up there, but I think it's absolutely super cool design. So this is a 14-fret dreadnought. I will start at the headstock. It's got a big multi-pointed star. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-pointed star with a it looks like one of those compass stars you would see on old ship maps and charts and stuff like that, and with the CF Martin script logo. Then it has a very busy fingerboard with a lot of wood inlay that looks like vines and flowers and leaves. And it's got a very cool, unusual pickguard that has a embossed design. But then the top itself is, and it's just amazing to look at. And what it represents is a sycamore tree with the rings of the sycamore tree, and that have been treated. So you got color variations from pale, almost a white tan, down to sort of a rich mahogany look. And it's representing the history of the Martin Guitar Company as if this sycamore tree had been planted when the Martin Guitar Company had been founded. So super cool look to it. I'm sure there's got a lot of people going to say, what on earth is that? Well, that's what it is. So this is the official thing. Its top depicts a cross-section of an American sycamore tree featuring rings made of real sycamore and solid gold, representing each year of the company's growth, with diamonds marking major milestones in Martin's 192-year history. The theme of past, present, and future is woven into every ornate detail, including its ebony head plate showcasing a diamond-filled Moravian star. That's where I saw it. I got it on my Moravian heat pad in my kitchen that I got at the Moravian Museum. Dick Boak's wife is one of the big shots there. As woven into every detail. Okay, Moravian and star, an engraved 14-karat platinum pickguard with rubies marking each of Martin's 3 Nazareth-era factory locations since 1939. The back has a beautiful sycamore tree, fully in leaf, but also with some blossoms, stars all around it. And, of course, it's made from just gorgeous Brazilian rosewood. It's also got gold and pearl inlay. Tribute to the countless employees who have left their fingerprints on the company from its early days in New York City to its longtime home in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. On what street?
Sycamore.
Sycamore, that's right. That's right. There used to be sycamore trees right across, but one of those first Martin Fests, there was a horrendous, like hurricane-sized storm when it was right when they had made that visitor center, and what's now the museum was just empty. So they actually put us all in there because of the storm, and that giant sycamore tree right across the street was destroyed, sadly, in that storm. But I still remember that, and I don't know if they actually salvaged the wood. I don't know if it was theirs to salvage. Might have belonged to the city, but perhaps they harvested some of that sycamore out of that actual Nazareth tree. But pretty cool. There's only 3 of these guitars being made. But for those of you who would like to have something like it, there's another guitar that is, relatively speaking, affordable because you can't buy those other ones. So why don't you tell us about the new D-300?
Well, the D-300 brings back some memories because it didn't seem like it was that long ago that the 2 millionth Martin was there with the D-200 and following suit back to the D-1 millionth. And before I go too far, I want to ask you a trivia question. This is a different kind of trivia question because only you guys know the answer after you look it up. I realized that it took Martin an awful long time to get to the millionth Martin, and then from going from the 1 millionth Martin to the 2 millionth Martin, it didn't take nearly that much time at all. I wonder if the time it took them to go from 2 million to this was a shorter span. And if you talk to anybody who's ordering Martin guitars, buying Martin guitars, Martin has ramped up production extremely in big waves. And they're making more guitars than they ever used to. Every few months, they're just building more than they were before. I wonder if the span from the 2 millionth to this one happened quicker than the 1 millionth to the 2 millionth. If you could look that up for us, please. This program is going to be about an hour long, so if you do that at this part of the show, you might be able to tell us in the comments section if you're watching on YouTube before it's all over. And I get the feeling that they're going to be at the 4 millionth Martin before a lot of people really decide to know what they want to do with this one. But I really can't believe, I know it's an aside, that they've gone that far that fast. And before I answer your question about the D-300, does it make any sense to you, as far as perspective, how fast the company's grown in the last 5 years?
Well, yeah, not just the last 5 years. I think you have to go back to when the new factory opened in the early 60s. I think it was built in 1960 and went into full production after 1960. But that greatly increased production right there. And supposedly, they say, like in 1956, 1955, dealers were waiting 2 years to get a D-28. That's how backed up their orders were from the old factory. And so production ramped up with the new factory. It continued to ramp up when Chris Martin really stepped into the stewardship of the company when his father was retired, as it were, and his grandfather remained the chairman. But it really wasn't up until, I think, the Keith Lombardi era when he became president that things started to really skyrocket. And he was adamant about saying that we want to be 2 NAMM shows ahead and what we're coming out with, and which maybe they only accomplished as 1 NAMM show ahead. But he wanted the models that showed up at the NAMM show to be in the shops in 3 or 4 months, not 9 to 12 months, and all that. That definitely was it. And another major reason the production increased, it was their facility in Navajo, Mexico, which really started out as a string factory and some other things, and then started making guitars and now is a full size, world-class guitar making facility. And so that certainly helped increase their overall production numbers. To put things in, like you said, in perspective of how long it took them to go from Martin going into business in 1833 to get up to the millionth, which was well over 100 years, heading toward 200 years, heading toward 200 years. But you have to remember, they didn't even start using serial numbers until the very late 1800s. So late 1890s, I think. I don't remember the exact first year they started using serial numbers. So, and I think they based that off the serial numbers, though the serial numbers didn't start at 0. So the serial numbers had at least some guesswork into where it was. But anyway, it's a pretty amazing thing. And for people who bought a D50, not mentioning any names, Ed, but and who were unhappy that the D-100 came out and kind of at least emotionally devalued the D50, then the D-200, and then all these other super fancy Martins, like the Celtic Knot, which is one of my all-time favorites, and all those things.
Right.
This D-300 is really a remarkable piece of work. It looks almost identical to the 3 millionth. The pickguard is not 14 karat platinum, and it does have some rubies. It definitely has a lot of the same features, but it's definitely not as expensive. It doesn't have quite the precious metals and so forth. But it still looks magnificent. It's still Brazilian rosewood, and so forth. So super cool.
Oh, yeah. And let us know in the comments if you know anybody who owns a D50, a D100, a D200, and maybe somebody out there knows somebody that needs to get this one to complete the set.
Exactly. And I wouldn't be surprised if I know a person who might be willing to do that. I haven't seen the sticker on this one, because it's not actually being released until today, and the spec sheet that I do have doesn't actually have that information. So people can look it up online today when they're hearing this podcast or seeing it on YouTube. And those of you who are full-fledged, top-flight Explorer Club patrons from Patreon will be watching this, and hopefully we'll be able to stick a photo or two of this into this podcast for those of you who have that privilege of seeing it. So that is the D-300 limited edition. They're only making 30 of these compared to 3 of the 3 millionth guitar model. And I'm looking really forward to going to the factory shortly and seeing at least one of these in production if they're not actually completed yet.
Yep. Tune in later for our comparison video, the D300 versus the D3000, or 3 million. Yeah, the D3000. That's a real rare one.
Yes, I'm afraid they're probably not going to let me touch them, but we never know. But if they do, I'll try to get video of it. Super cool. And we got some other really super cool guitars. These kind of overshadow historically what we're looking at here. But we also have a new CEO model. And that's also super cool and looks gorgeous. And this is the CEO-11. For those of you unfamiliar, Maury will fill us in on what is the CEO model.
The CEO model, over time, is the guitar that the CEO of Martin actually designed. So Chris Martin had designed the CEO, the CEO-2, the CEO-3, all the way through the CEO-9. When the CEO-10 came on the scene, we got to see the very first guitar designed by the new CEO of Martin Guitar, Thomas Ripsom. And he did not stop there. This new guitar is also designed by Thomas. And I would have this filed under, I looked at this press release in an email, and I did not like that color at all. I looked at it a second time, and it immediately grew on me. And I was almost ready to type to you, can you believe they did this to this guitar's top? And I took a breath, and I looked at it again, and I thought, that is stunning. And like you said, we're going to try to put some pictures up here for the patron version of this podcast. It kind of harkened back to, is John Mayer the CEO now at Martin Guitar? Because the color of this reminds me almost about this, the OM45 John Mayer. But no, this guitar looks like it's got some real class to it. And as much as it's cliche to say, a lot of things look better in person, or at least look different in person. Not knowing what this guitar looks like on anyone else's photographs, I cannot wait to see this in person. But the CEO-11 looks like it's borrowing some features, at least the shape and the scale length of the CEO-10. How do you think this is going to sound compared to each other, Spoon?
Well, that's really interesting you say that. I think you've missed a very important point in this. But yeah, so Thomas has a European background. He's from Germany initially and was there long enough to retain the accent. And he actually knows a lot about guitars, plays guitars, and knew what he was doing when he designed the CEO-10. I was asked to do the article for the Martin's annual journal about that instrument. It's full of the environmentally friendly Forest Stewardship Council materials and that kind of stuff. This is different than that. That is a smaller body. This new one is a quadruple O. It's an M size. So
I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's a bigger body. And it's interesting, and some people might find some irony in this, is that the price list no longer includes the M36. So Martin, as of like right now, does not currently have an M model in regular production. So that's interesting that they went with a Grand Auditorium, Grand Auditorium guitar. And
with the exception of the Johnny Mars, if you count them as regular.
Well, yeah, I don't consider them. I mean, they're not going to stick around forever. Those are M's, right? But that's an artist signature model. I mean, there's nothing in the standard series or anything below that is now an M. So that's fascinating to me. They're calling this top New Horizons Blue Burst. And the first thing I thought of when I saw it, first of all, it's European spruce. And at least the one in the photo has a little bit of like a single bear claw, kind of, speaking of German, a sort of Heidelberg fencing scar on the base side of it. But first thing I thought of was Neil Young, because it looks to me like faded blue jeans. It looks like the top could have been made with faded denim. And so I'm really curious. I haven't seen this one yet. I haven't had a chance to get to the factory since they actually came out with these production-wise, so I'm looking forward to seeing it in real life. But so it's white oak for the back and sides. So that'll also be fascinating to see what the white oak is like. The neck is made from flame maple. So that's unusual. It has the modern GE modified low oval neck that is now the new standard neck. And it's basically the modified low oval, but it's got a different shape to the volute on the back for the upper end models that have that decorative diamond on the back. And it's got a different shape to the heel that they call a vintage style, but it's actually narrower than either a vintage style or the previous Martin heel. So it changes the overall feel as that carve comes down the neck. It's both sides of it change the feel of that neck a little bit. So I'm really curious to see how much it comes on with the Fishman Aura blend, and it's got custom inlay. It's got a very unusual rope-looking, like vine-looking rosette, and these very wide open skeleton diamonds that are somewhat reminiscent of a custom shop series model back in the day, but I don't remember which CS model actually had that. May have been the one that our friend Tom Fleischman was talking about when we were interviewing him, and he'll be appearing on the program in the future. But anyway, it's a very cool guitar. I'm looking really, really very interesting guitar. And you're right. Now that I look at it, the way the burst is, if you saw a black and white photo of this thing, it would probably look a lot like the John Mayer OM45 John Mayer. So interesting call. Good eye there, Maury. Good eye.
So I do have to jump in and correct myself. I accidentally made the mention of short scale a few minutes ago. This is not a triple O, and it is not short scale. It's basically a long scale M. So before we go further on this podcast, know that correction is made. And I'm a little bit surprised the M36 is no longer in the lineup, but within months, there are 3 choices now that are very anything but typical and regular, and frankly, anything that's going to stay. So let us know in the comments or on Patreon, where do you think Martin should put a standard series or a standard a standardized M. Which series do you think deserves this body size? Because once the CEO-11 is sold out and the Johnny Mars have run their course, I don't know if it has to be an M36 again. Maybe it can be a 17 series or Road Series. How about a Road Series M?
Well, they made those a long time ago, back when the Road Series had different model names, and when it had an M, so there was an MM of some sort. I don't remember exactly what it was called. I'm pretty sure there was an M15 in the background, back in the day. I know there was an M18 originally that they didn't make very many of them, but I do have a friend here, my old guitar tech, Bob Jones, has an M18 going all the way back that was actually played by one of the Rolling Stones when they performed with Bob Dylan at one of those big fundraising concerts in D.C. I can't remember now which, but it played Go Blowin' in the Wind and all that on his M18, so that was pretty cool. I've had M's. You've never actually owned an M, have you? Do you remember any M's that you stand out in your memory that you really liked?
There was a Philly Folk Festival limited edition. I could swear it was an M, and I think it belonged to El McMean or El McMean. I can remember being in our second location, El McMean being there, and that's where it gets fuzzy. But I think that's the one I'm trying to remember.
Yes, and the M, of course, came from the old Martin size F arch tops from the 1930s, where people started taking them and taking off the arch top and putting on an X-braced flat top. And Dave Bromberg brought one of those to show Fred Martin at the factory back in the 70s and said, "You guys should make these as a model," and they did. So that became the M38 and then the M36, and then the M18 was out for a while. The MC28, the MC68, so forth. So right. The M's have come and gone. And so it's, again, interesting that Thomas Ripsum, the CEO of C.F. Martin and Company, chose the M size for the new CEO-11. So that is two very colorful instruments that we're allowed to talk about today, as the press embargo on these instruments has come and gone. And there's another fascinating instrument that this is something I can't wait to see in person. This is a special artist model, but not in terms of a musician, but in terms of a painter who created the artwork that is used on the top. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
I thought you were setting me up for a segue that had something to do with something else, but I will pivot right to the OOL Oliver. And I've never been so confident about saying the wrong answer so loudly. I was going to finish your sentence because we know each other so well, and that is coming up after we talk about the OOL Oliver. This is another guitar that when I saw this email, it was sort of hard to look at my phone while I didn't get to a desktop computer fast enough to blow these pictures up properly. But this top might be the most interesting of the bunch, and that's saying something because we already went past the CEO-11 and, of course, that Sycamore on the D3 Million and the D300. That doesn't mean we're done talking about unique-looking instruments. I admit I don't understand this top, and I don't get the reference. What do you know about why this is called Oliver?
Well, I had to look into it because they don't mention anything in the little press blurb that came out. They'll probably, by the time this model's released on the day this podcast is coming out, they'll probably have a lot more about that. But anyway, the artist is Julie Heffernan. I always want to say Heffernan. She actually lives right here in Brooklyn. She's a Yale-educated artist who has served either honorary or an instructor in very big art institutes, and including Pennsylvania. One in Pennsylvania, but she's kind of a fantastical artist, and she does these a lot of portraits, but they're always surrounded with a lot of flora and fauna and really fantastical stuff. And I'm trying to remember what somebody had said described her work as. In fact, I might still have the quote somewhere, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But this is a 14 fret slope shoulder double O, so it's the body size that's in between the triple O and the double O. They call it the double O L for long, though it was actually inspired by the L double O of the Gibson size L guitars. And this one is made with medium flame koa back and sides, so that's fascinating. And it has FSC certified Sitka spruce, environmentally friendly satin finish, and short scale. So it's basically this similar size to this, same size as the CEO-7 and the CEO-9 and CEO-10, but it has the regular modified low oval. In fact, it doesn't say GE on it, so it looks like it's a regular modified low oval. And the fingerboard inlay is old style 18, ebony board and bridge, and but this. How do you describe this painting? This painting looks like a lot of foliage, including very busy wildflowers. And then in the center of the bottom, right below the bridge, is like a clearing with what looks like a lot of little silvery white people, probably fairies it's supposed to be, or something like that. Very tiny people, as if you're spying them dancing around the stalk of a fantastical plant. So why Oliver? Well, first of all, why did they do this at all? And the real reason is Tim Teal has always loved the idea of working with artists. We had our friend Peter Curry on the program, who spent several years doing these really cool tops, not necessarily on official Martin models, but they originally brought him in as they were exploring the idea of using paintings on tops. But he did them for customers who could afford the significant price tags to do these really beautiful botanical designs and stuff on people's guitar tops, and they look particularly great on the mahogany guitar tops, on the Style 15 guitar tops. And then, of course, we have Robeet Goetzl, who has been doing. He was kind of the artist they settled on to do a lot of painted tops, and either he would do the original painting and they would reproduce it with their laser painter, or and later on he started doing custom, actual hand painting limited editions. Well, this is an artist they were looking to work with for some time, and they chose one of her existing paintings that is called, I used to know what it was called, but I don't remember it now. It's called Self-Portrait as Arms and Men. So this is her self-portrait as arms and men, though I'm not exactly sure. I guess this is dealing with her inner beauty, because I don't see anything on here that looks remotely like a human being, let alone the artist herself. So, but that's what it's called. The reason it's called Oliver is a bit of a mystery, except that her eldest son is named Oliver, and she often mentions him as being someone who, I don't know if you say advises, but gives his opinion about her work and his own interpretation of it. So perhaps we will learn a little more about why why the guitar is named Oliver, even though the actual painting isn't named Oliver.
Nice. And I have to wonder, speaking of Robeet Goetzl and speaking of FSC certified, will this guitar eventually live in the sustainability exhibit at Martin Guitar, where a very similar instrument, the OOL Earth, and things like that are already housed? I bet you this has a little place set aside for it to be there because it's FSC top, right?
It is FSC top. They don't say anything about the back and sides being FSC, but yes, it is. I'm just looking to see. And they give us the usual koa somewhere between mahogany and rosewood, and I never really like people saying that because I don't think it sounds like either. I think it's got its own unique sound. It's got really very beautiful high-end chimey harmonics, and it's a much more, I guess, straightforward when it comes to the bass. But I think it has its own sound, and it's a sound I like a lot. And I've never owned a koa guitar, but I keep waiting for one to come my way that A, I can afford, and B, that I fall in love with the feel of it, even if I I like this, sound of guitars in general. And so this will be interesting. I don't see anything about how many they're going to make yet. So I'll be curious to see it in person. And I think I've already been warned that when I go to the factory in a few days that they're not going to have one available, unfortunately. So they are a little behind on their production for this NAMM show. So, but maybe, they said maybe they can scare one up. We'll see.
Well, you're allowed to send me back there sometime next month. If everything looks like it's almost ready and we don't get to do it together, put me on the bus.
Fair enough. And that may actually come. I've already gotten a couple promises about coming back and seeing some of the new stuff that's not going to be available on NAMM Day because whatever they've made is going to the show and they don't have anything. They won't have as many things in the lobby this year as they've had in the past. So that's too bad, but such is life. Before we go to the long-awaited special standard series model that I hinted at last week and earlier today.
Hinted at or accidentally talked all about?
I deny everything.
It was only a hint because I put a black bar across your face and hit the bleep button.
So we have two interesting ukuleles. Some of you know that Martin was one of the very first, if not the first, mainland musical instrument maker to start making ukuleles after the Hawaiian music craze was sparked in 1912 at the Pan-Asian exhibition in San Francisco. And they actually claimed that the ukulele actually allowed the Martin Guitar Company to survive the Great Depression.
Oh, yeah.
And so we have two ukes. We have the Centennial 1 concert uke. Now, this is a uke that's made in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. It is a concert-size uke, and it's made with sinker mahogany. So that's very cool. This is mahogany that was reclaimed from water in Belize. They believe it was probably dense logs that got trapped under other logs when they were floating the logs toward a downstream or across the lake toward a sawmill, and they actually sank and remained there. And we don't know for certain. We know that some of the sinker mahogany that was originally discovered and that Martin acquired from Belize was like 300 years old. It wasn't in the water for 300 years old. It was in the water since the early 1900s. But some of them were extremely old growth mahogany trees. They've used a lot and acquired more. So there's no telling how old this sinker mahogany is. But sinker mahogany definitely has a highly reflective sound. It really pops and typically has superior bass response compared to just your basic everyday mahogany, which is still wonderful. So this is a fully professional uke that is made with sinker mahogany backsides and top, East Indian rosewood for the board and bridge. And I used to know what this costs, but it's not on. Oh yeah, it's $18.99. It's listed as $18.99, and so it's a full-blown professional ukulele that's celebrating the 100 years since Martin first started making concert ukes. And so that's very cool. And it looks like the classic uke from that era. And then we have the other ukulele that is just called the Centennial Concert Uke. And this only costs $600, $599. This is made in Navajoa, but again, it's celebrating 1925 when they first came out with their Style 1 concert uke. And this is made with genuine American tropical mahogany and East Indian board and bridge. So there you have it, two very traditional, woody, modest appointments, but all about fine wood for artists who want to play a full-blown professional ukulele that's got wonderful tone.
So with all the great guitars coming up in this program, that was kind of the you have to eat your vegetables first part of the show, at least for me, because I'm not a uke guy. And I do have something prepared. I want to say it on the microphone, but because I'm a team player and you are as big or a bigger part of this show than anybody. I'll say something, and if you think it would sound better with you saying it, we should both record it, and I'll use the best take. Martin's been making concert ukes for 100 years. You gotta be kidding. I can't believe it. You try. Sorry.
That was pretty good. So yes, Martin has been making concert ukes since 1925. And then I forgot the punchline.
You gotta be kidding.
Thank you. So Martin has been making concert ukulele since 1925. Uke, gotta believe me? I guess we're going with yours. You gotta be kidding me. And then what do you say?
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it. Or you could say the first one and you could say, oh, well, you can believe it. But no. Yeah, no, I think you like yours best. Try yours one more time because you were just...
Me? You gotta be kidding me. I can't believe it.
Well, let's do the whole thing. Okay, so moving on, we could have a drum roll about this Standard Series Martin, unlike any Standard Series Martin that's ever been made. And I'm going to give you the name, and then let's see if people guess what it stands for, and then Maury can reveal why it's so cool. We have the Martin Grand J-28E DN.
DN stands for double neck. Wow. For real.
Wow is right. Wow is right. For the first time in over a century, Martin is thrilled to offer a one-of-a-kind double neck instrument. So this is the Grand J body size and then some. And it is got a 6-string neck and a 12-string neck. So, where's Don Felder and Jimmy Page when you need them? So yeah, I mean, this is what it is. It's an acoustic guitar, Martin, and with obviously a pretty impressive bracing pattern underneath it. And I didn't see this coming. Nobody said anything. I mean, I've known they played around with this stuff in the past, and there've been R&D stuff, but never did I have even a clue that this was coming out. So big surprise for me. It's a 1/11/16 inch nut on the 6-string and 1 13/16 on the 12-string. Gloss finish, full Standard Series style 28 with the 1950s version, like the D-28 with the black and white ply bindings, chrome tuners, ebony boards and bridges.
I am so sorry we no longer sell bridge pins because I could have sold somebody fossilized walrus ivory pins for that guitar and retired.
That's absolutely right. So it actually has a Fishman pickup system in it that is designed specifically for a double neck guitar. Comes with a molded hard shell case that's got to be bigger than Jackie Gleason's bus, and and it's unique. And unfortunately, again, they told me they won't have one for me to play next week. So we will hopefully get a chance to, and I'm sure they'll have one at the show, and there'll be plenty of videos online of people playing this thing. But the reason all these years that I've gone to the factory instead of going to NAMM is I can actually hear the guitars in the factory. So, we'll see. We're gonna try to work up a follow-up visit at some point where I can play some of these guitars that are a little behind schedule. But yes, an amazing instrument, and I can't wait to see somebody playing this on stage in concert at some time because there are people out there. I wonder if Steve Miller wants one of these. He's the kind of guy that might want one of these, but.
And it's funny, this guitar, maybe you could hear this guitar at NAMM if somebody was playing it. And I have to go back and look at my phone. I was telling you last week, and I had to bleep it out, one of our mutual friends at the factory, and I'll wait until later to decide if I want to reveal him. He sent me this in May, and it's him playing, back in the factory, sitting down. Check this out. First, I want to look really closely at that picture and see if the prototype matches up with this directly or if there are differences. And not that he's going to be able to get us the guitar sooner, but I will ask him he was probably one of the people on the design team, if I remember correctly. And he, even if we can't play it when we go to the factory, we can certainly find him and ask him all about it. But yeah, this guitar, the first thing I thought of was the case too. I think I even asked him that before he told me all the details. What do you put it in? Because I don't know, was that a rectangle? Would you make a shape for that? And it's not your traditional. If it is a rectangle, it probably looks like two pallets next to each other. But I'm extremely curious to see what shipping is like on those. And that might be, only because it's so strange, it might be the guitar I want to play more than anything else, although the CEO-11 is pretty high on my radar.
I'm trying to imagine being able to play this thing sitting down. I don't know if you can. Probably have to play it standing up. Or maybe you can do it like Galbraith, what's his name? The classical player that actually has his guitar on a peg and he plays it like a cello. Maybe you could do that with this. But and it comes in at a whopping $7,999, so $8,000 for this. Yeah. But there's definitely going to be people out there, the professional players, touring artists that are going to get one of these that will not be able to resist it. So I mean, I've tried to, I've played one of those Les Pauls with the 6 and 12, and those guys must seriously work out. Jimmy Page seems kind of like a slight guy, but he's got to have a pretty significant back to be able to play one of those things, in concert all the time, like he did back in the day. But
so you hinted to his name a few minutes ago, but is there anything new in this crop from our friend Robeet Goetzl? I think there is.
I think there is indeed. Robert, who's, like I said, have done many guitars for designs for Martin Guitar, as well as the big Martin family portrait that's in the Visitor Center and so forth. And he has turned his artist's eye to the museum and helping to arrange the various displays in the museum and all that sort of thing. So we're coming out with what's officially the 10th. And why don't you tell us a little bit about Robert's new project with Martin Guitar?
Well, if you guys thought we were done with the colorful instruments, not only are we not, I think this guitar might be the most vibrant, the most colorful, at least looking at the press release in this email. When you scroll down from the top guitar to the last guitar, it's really hard to put in perspective which one's brighter and which one will be, whatever you want to call it in real life. But this jumps off the page more than anything else. This guitar has a hummingbird theme. It's a very bright, colorful instrument, not unlike a lot of the things that Robert's put together in the past. But this instrument looks like, if you put them all on display, this is the one you're going to be able to see when you park your car. Before you get to the front door, let alone open it, you're going to see this from a distance. This guitar looks like it just screams. Maybe it's not the loudest because we have a double neck Grand J we just talked about, but it is the loudest aesthetically. Have you had a chance to see any of these designs, Spoon, before they made it to the guitar's top?
I have seen some in the past where you actually saw what they were going to put on the guitar with the laser painter, but this, or however they call that painting machine, but this is not that. I mean, this is something that Robert clearly put a great deal of attention, detail, and love in. There are these big, wide tropical flowers. Somebody's probably going to be able to see these things and immediately name the blossom that's involved with these big pink flowers with big green leaves. And then up and the upper lower bout, where you have the upper lower bout, the base side of the bottom bout, you have a bright yellow, like Peter Max yellow field with this like rainbow color hummingbird, and having his beak into the nectar of one of the biggest blossom, and really gorgeous. Exactly the kind of thing. It was like I could see Taylor Swift or Jewel or some artist like that wanting this as a stage guitar, and it's a East Indian back and sides, so it's a big, powerful, pretty sounding dreadnought, but absolutely gorgeous. Robeet Goetzl 10, striking piece of playable art, as they put it, and you're right. I think of all the ones he's done, I mean, I really like the earth with the sunrise starting to come up over the planet and somewhat stylized, and some of the other ones, the deep sea one with the whales and so forth. But the poker playing dogs, of course, and other classier artwork. But this is it's absolutely arresting, stunning, and I'm sure that somebody's going to really love having this guitar.
Are you surprised they never made one like cats playing craps? That would be cool. The craps pit. Because they would push the dice around. They would probably do that. Have you heard?
Yeah.
Have you heard? Are they going to have this guitar at the factory next week?
I don't think so. It doesn't. Unfortunately, it doesn't sound like. I mean, I sent them a list saying, "Okay, you told me you're going to have these. It'd be really great if we could have this one, this one, this one, but we'll see what happens." Yeah, I don't know why they're not having as many this year. That's not been. Maybe I'll learn when I get there. But like I said, in the Keith Lombardi era, he's not been in the company for some time now. But when he was president, he was the one that really lit a fire under modernizing the production and to have everything not just ready for the show, but everything basically ready for the next show. Back when they did 2 NAMMs a year, and that seems to. And of course, that was before COVID. So COVID's messed everything up in terms of this sort of industry. So I'm just happy they're still around and still putting out great guitars.
Yeah, and it's kind of a good thing. If there has to be a problem at Martin, you don't want it to be the opposite, where they're ready for the 4 shows ahead, which means no one's buying guitars. So the fact that a lot of these guitars are scarce and they're hard to come by and they don't have enough done means the people building guitars are too busy. And that goes back to my earlier comment, going from the 2 millionth to the 3 millionth, was probably faster or as fast as anything else. And when we finally do get to Martin and they catch up where we can actually see the NAMM models in stores during NAMM, maybe that means they got caught up. And I don't know if that's always a good thing, but we'll have to dip our beak into the nectar at Martin when we get there and ask all these important questions. And on future podcasts, we'll bring you some insider information, which reminds me, we actually Mike Dickinson owes us another appearance soon. Lori had the thought to call it the Quarterly Report with Mike Dickinson, and we have not seen him every quarter. We probably see him once a season. Mike, if you're watching, I think we have to see you again soon. And maybe if we don't see you in person when we visit the factory, we'll certainly have to get on with you, at least in long distance. But I have a lot of questions for him and other people, including whoever had anything to do with that double neck Martin. But it's all coming up on future episodes. If you haven't yet, please consider liking and subscribing. If you're watching this on the YouTube version, please let us know in the comments which of these guitars, or even last week's models, are you most interested to see. And from all of us at Martins and More, thanks for listening.
Hear you later.